Well, today is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. And again, I'll be taking the daily devotional from the United Church of Christ and giving my impressions, interpretations, understanding of it, not addressing it from a specifically Christian perspective, but taking a Christian text and using it to talk about everyday life. There are other faith traditions that you could do the same with, but mine happens to be from the Christian text. The devotion for today is entitled A DEI Psalm, written by Talitha Arnold. Talitha bases the devotion upon Psalm 67, verse 4, New Revised Standard Version. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon earth. And then Talitha writes, the word equity caught my attention in today's psalm. Although it's much in the news these days, equity doesn't show up much in English translations of the Bible, only 14 times in the NRSV, 7 of which are in the Psalms. But the Hebrew word meshar, translated as equity in Psalm 67, is found throughout the Bible, since it also means righteousness, fairness, and levelness, as in a level playing field. Unlike equity, the modern words diversity and inclusion don't appear in the Bible's English translation, but the concepts certainly do. In Psalm 67, the psalmist begins with the ancient Aaronic blessing, may the Lord bless you and keep you, Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 through 26, but expands the blessing from the original you, singular, to the plural us. The whole congregation is included in the blessing. Then the psalmist takes that inclusion beyond their own congregation and their own people to embrace all the peoples and all the nations. The blessing expands across the psalm, first for the individual, then the congregation, then the tribe, and by its last verse, Psalm 67 becomes a call to extend God's blessing to all the ends of the earth. Psalm 67 sings clearly of God's command for us, our congregations, our country, to be committed expansively to diversity, inclusion, and equity. As Jesus would say, let those who have ears hear. And Talitha's prayer, thank you, God, for ancient words that teach a truth we need to hear. A couple things when I was reading this in the text. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon earth. It's a reflection on the entire earth, all the nations, not just the Jewish nations, the Hebrew nations, but all the nations to be guided. So it's an inclusive statement right from the get-go. And certainly, as Talitha points out, I feel that I agree with her that the Bible does talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion as values, both in the Hebraic tradition and also for those who follow Jesus and the things that he talked about. It made me think of, I think there's a Leviticus text, Leviticus 19, verses 33 through 34, that says, from the Common English Version, excuse me, when immigrants live in your land with you, you must not cheat them. Any immigrant who lives with you must be treated as if they were one of your citizens. You must love them as yourself because you were immigrants in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And it's an inclusiveness statement again, from this perspective of certainly trying to remember when the people themselves were immigrants in a strange land. And really, for most of us in the United States, we are not native originally from this land, but came from other lands and had to, or brought our cultures with us and adapted and became residents of an area that was already inhabited by other peoples. So we have to remember that we too, at some point in the past, were immigrants. And we have to also remember that we didn't treat the people who were already here, people whose land this was, with equity and inclusion, with fairness. at all. And I think it's important to remember that because that leads us to a state of treating one another with compassion and empathy and understanding and working for the good of all. I think the world is better served if we consider that we are all inhabitants of this planet Earth and that we are responsible for one another and that our lives are part of an integrated whole. We're included in humanity, and by that nature, we should embrace diversity and live equitably so that all may live. It also reminds me of other stories in the Bible, like when the Hebrews had escaped from Egypt and were wandering in the desert and were given, according to the scriptures, sent by God manna to eat so they wouldn't starve in the desert. And the instructions were that everyone was to take what they needed, with no specifics about what quantity that was, but simply to let their conscience be their guide to take what they needed and nothing more, so that everyone may have enough. And I certainly think we need more of that in our world today. And it does go back to embracing diversity, being an inclusive society, and treating everyone with equity. And equity understanding different people's differing needs and making sure that they have enough as well. Anyway, those are my interpretations of this for today. Yours may be different, but I hope it's given you some things to think about in our world today and a way to look at your own, whatever theological text, religious text, or whatever you may be reading, to think on them expansively and how they relate to how we relate to one another in the world. Hope you have a good day and talk to you again soon.